The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber stretched above thousands of delegates from across the known galaxy. Floating platforms held representatives from species that had never breathed the same air, their translation devices humming softly as conversations mixed into a symphony of alien languages. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, suspended in the void between three stars, its walls offering a breathtaking view of swirling nebulae and distant worlds. Ambassador Kang of the Trilarian species stepped forward on his platform, his blue-scaled skin shimmering under the chamber's artificial lights. The Trilarians were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful explorers, their crystalline ships mapping new worlds for centuries without ever firing a shot. When Kang spoke, his normally calm voice carried an edge of urgency that made nearby delegates turn their attention toward him. "Honored delegates," Kang began, his webbed hands gripping the podium as his voice resonated through the translation matrix. "I stand before you today with news that cannot wait for formal proceedings. 3 cycles ago, our exploration fleet encountered a world in the outer spiral arm, a world called Earth." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The outer spiral was considered backwater territory, home to primitive civilizations that barely understood fire, let alone space travel. Several delegates from the more advanced inner systems exchanged amused glances. Kang's scaled head turned toward the section reserved for the NIGMA Empire delegation. Their representatives sat in ornate thrones that floated above the common platforms, a deliberate display of superiority. General Vorth, the Empire's chief military advisor, was an imposing figure even by galactic standards. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed black as obsidian, and cybernetic implants glowed red along his skull. The NIGMA had conquered 47 systems in the past century, each victory adding to their reputation as unstoppable conquerors. "These humans," Kang continued, his voice growing stronger, "have demonstrated something we have never encountered before. Our scout ship, the Crystal Wing, was observing their planet when pirates from the Nexus Syndicate attacked a human colony vessel. What happened next defied every tactical manual in our database." The chamber fell silent. Pirate attacks were common in the outer systems, and most primitive species simply became victims or slaves. But something in Kang's tone suggested this story would be different. "The human ship had no weapons," Kang said, his eyes meeting those of General Vorth. "No shields, no military training, just civilians fleeing their overcrowded homeworld to establish a new settlement. The pirates expected easy prey." General Vorth's mandibles clicked in what his species considered laughter. "And they became slaves, as all primitives do when they encounter superior force." "No." Kang's simple word cut through the chamber like a blade. The humans fought back. Now Vorth leaned forward, his red eyes focusing intently on the Trilarian. "Ambassador, the NIGMA general had seen countless species fight back. It never ended well for them. They turned their mining equipment into weapons," Kang continued. "They used their navigation systems to jam pirate communications. They even turned their gravity generators into traps, creating fields that crushed pirate boarding parties. In 3 hours, they had disabled 4 pirate vessels and captured 2 more." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Defeating pirates was one thing, but capturing their ships required tactical thinking that supposedly took centuries to develop. "Impossible," General Vorth declared, his voice booming across the chamber. "Our intelligence networks show Earth's dominant species has barely mastered chemical propulsion. They wage wars with metal projectiles and chemical explosives. These are primitives who should be begging for the honor of serving the NIGMA Empire." "That is precisely why you should listen," Kang shot back, his normally diplomatic demeanor cracking. "Captain Hana was aboard the Crystal Wing when she witnessed this battle. She has 3 centuries of combat experience, and she told me she had never seen anything like it. The humans didn't just fight, they adapted. Every time the pirates changed tactics, the humans found a new counter-strategy within minutes." In the observer section, a small figure sat quietly among the junior diplomats and trade representatives. Admiral Yoon was Earth's first official, representative to the Galactic Council, though most delegates barely acknowledged the primitive world's right to even send an observer. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple military style, and her dark eyes missed nothing as they studied the reactions around the chamber. The ancient keeper of the council, a being so old that his species' name had been forgotten eons ago, slowly raised his energy form above his platform. When the keeper spoke, his voice carried the weight of millennia. Young Vorth, the keeper's whispered words somehow filled the vast chamber. I have witnessed the rise and fall of 1,000 empires. Each believed their technology made them invincible. The Vorthan Empire possessed ships that could crack planets. They dismissed the Kalari as primitive forest dwellers who built weapons from crystal and song. The Vorthan worlds are now silent. Graveyards and Kalari meditation gardens bloom in their former capitals. The chamber fell deathly quiet. Everyone knew the keeper's stories, but few had heard him speak of the great fallen empires with such directness. The Zephyrian Dominion ruled from massive space cities, their fleets numbering in the millions. The keeper continued. They laughed when the Moran species began their uprising, calling them ground-crawling insects with delusions of flight. Today, former Moran slaves pilot ships built from Zephyrian wreckage across 3 sectors. General Vorth's exoskeleton bristled with angry energy. The NIGMA Empire is not some ancient failure. Our fleet numbers exceed anything the galaxy has seen. Our weapons can sterilize entire systems. These humans will kneel like all the others, or they will burn. The general's weapon arm, a cybernetic replacement that doubled as a plasma cannon, slammed against his platform's podium with a sound like thunder. The gesture sent ripples of fear through many of the smaller delegations, but Admiral Yoon's expression never changed. We claim the Earth system and all its resources, Vorth declared. The NIGMA Empire extends its protection to these humans, and they will serve us within 1 solar cycle. This discussion is over. The NIGMA delegation rose from their floating thrones in perfect synchronization, their anti-gravity platforms carrying them toward the chamber's exit in a display of choreographed arrogance. Other delegates watched them leave, some with relief, others with barely concealed anticipation of the coming conflict. As the chamber doors sealed behind the NIGMA representatives, Ambassador Kang slowly approached the observer section where Admiral Yoon sat alone among empty seats. I'm sorry we couldn't prevent this, Kang said, his blue scales dimming with genuine sadness. My people have explored 1,000 worlds, but we have never learned to fight. We can only witness and warn. Admiral Yoon stood, her small frame dwarfed by the towering Trilarian, but her presence somehow filled the space around her. Her smile was cold as winter space, and her dark eyes held depths that spoke of preparations already made. Don't be sorry. Ambassador, she said, her voice carrying a quiet confidence that made Kang's scales shimmer with unexpected hope. General Vorth and his empire have been given fair warning. What happens next is their choice. As the Galactic Council session officially ended and delegates began filing out through dimensional portals and teleportation arrays, Admiral Yoon remained standing in the observer section, looking out through the crystal walls at the vast expanse of space. Somewhere out there beyond the visible stars, Earth waited, and humanity was ready. The void around Earth suddenly rippled with dimensional tears as the NIGMA invasion fleet burst through hyperspace. 1,000 warships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming like black metal under the sun's light. Each ship stretched over 2 kilometers long, bristling with plasma cannons and energy shields that could level mountains. The flagship, a massive dreadnought called Eternal Dominion, took position directly above the planet's northern hemisphere. General Vorth stood on the bridge, his cybernetic implants glowing with satisfaction as he surveyed the primitive world. Below, his tactical officers moved efficiently around holographic displays showing Earth's major population centers. The plan was simple and had worked on 47 other worlds. Demonstrate overwhelming force, demand surrender, then begin the harvest of resources and useful slaves. Begin orbital bombardment sequence, Vorth commanded. Target the largest population centers first. Leave enough survivors to serve as examples. But as the plasma cannons charged with deadly energy, something unexpected happened. Instead of the desperate radio transmissions begging for mercy that usually filled the airwaves, Earth's communication networks fell completely silent. The planet's surface showed no signs of panic or evacuation. Cities continued their normal operations as if 1,000 alien warships weren't hovering overhead. 300 kilometers below, Admiral Yoon stood in the Seoul Command Center, AEI, facility that had been secretly built deep beneath the Korean mountains. Banks of quantum computers processed data from satellites that had been quietly repositioned over the past months. Every NIGMA ship was tracked, their weapon systems analyzed, their formation patterns studied and cataloged. All units, execute Protocol Omega. Admiral Yoon's voice carried through encrypted channels to command centers across the globe. Show them what humans do best. The words were barely spoken when Earth's response began. What appeared to be normal, communication satellites suddenly revealed their true nature. Unfolding into orbital weapons platforms, solar panels became focusing mirrors, concentrating sunlight into devastating laser beams. Weather monitoring stations fired electromagnetically launched projectiles at speeds that could punch through NIGMA shields. In Tokyo, Colonel Park crouched in what had once been a subway maintenance tunnel. His team wore adaptive camouflage that shifted to match their surroundings, making them nearly invisible against the concrete walls. Through his tactical display, he watched NIGMA dropships descending toward the city's main districts. "Remember the plan," Park whispered to his soldiers. "Let them land. Let them think they've won. Then we show them what home field advantage really means." The first wave of NIGMA dropships touched down in Shibuya Crossing, expecting to find terrified civilians running in panic. Instead, they found empty streets and silence. The alien soldiers, encased in powered armor that made them twice as tall as humans, advanced cautiously through the abandoned shopping districts. "Sector 7 clear," reported a NIGMA squad leader through his helmet comm. No resistance detected. That's when the first trap triggered. What appeared to be a simple pedestrian crossing suddenly erupted in a controlled explosion that sent 3 NIGMA soldiers flying. The blast wasn't meant to kill, but to separate and disorient. As the aliens tried to regroup, the real attack began. Captain Kim emerged from a maintenance hatch directly behind the NIGMA formation. Her squad carried weapons that looked like standard human assault rifles, but fired rounds made from reverse-engineered alien materials. The bullets punched through NIGMA, armor like paper, their energy cores destabilizing on impact. Contact, human forces engaging. The NIGMA radio chatter filled with confusion as more squads reported similar ambushes across the city. The aliens had expected urban warfare, but not like this. Every subway tunnel had become a weapon corridor. Every building had been fitted, with hidden gun ports. Every intersection contained carefully placed explosive devices that could be triggered remotely. The humans had turned their own city into a massive trap. "Sir, the humans are using their transportation tunnels as weapon corridors," reported a NIGMA lieutenant to General Vorth aboard the flagship. "Our forces are taking heavy casualties in all major cities." "Impossible," Vorth snarled, his mandibles clicking with frustration. "Our scans showed no military installations there. These are civilian areas." But that was exactly the point. Humanity had spent months converting civilian infrastructure into military assets. Subway systems became underground fortresses. Office buildings became sniper nests. Even children's playgrounds had been fitted with automated defense turrets, disguised as playground equipment. In New York, Dr. Shin's research team had been working around the clock in a facility hidden beneath the city's financial district. The laboratory buzzed with activity as scientists and engineers worked to perfect their latest creations. Months earlier, they had managed to capture several NIGMA scout ships during reconnaissance missions. Those ships had provided the technological foundation for humanity's defense. "Plasma containment field is stable," called out one of Shin's assistants. "The hybrid weapon system is ready for field testing." Dr. Shin watched as her team's creation powered up. It looked like an oversized rifle, but instead of firing bullets, it launched NIGMA-style plasma bolts enhanced with human targeting systems. The weapon could adapt its energy output based on what it was shooting at, making it devastatingly effective against alien armor. "Deploy the hybrid weapons to all defensive positions," Shin ordered. "Let's see how they like facing their own technology." Meanwhile, construction crews across the city were putting the final touches on their own contributions to the defense. Massive building cranes had been converted into kinetic weapon platforms, using their lifting systems to launch projectiles at incredible speeds. Road construction equipment had been modified to create instant fortifications, turning city streets into defensive mazes that channeled attacking forces into kill zones. Above the planet, the NIGMA fleet began to realize their orbital bombardment was having no effect. Earth's defensive systems seemed to anticipate every attack, with energy shields appearing exactly where plasma bolts were aimed. Unknown to the aliens, humanity had been studying their weapon signatures for months, learning to predict and counter their tactical patterns. "They're adapting too quickly," General Vorth snarled as casualty reports continued streaming in from the surface. "How can primitives match our technology?" His tactical officer, a younger NIGMA warrior with fewer cybernetic enhancements, studied the data flowing across his screens. "Sir, it appears they've been preparing for this attack for some time. Their defensive positions are too well coordinated to be improvised. Impossible. Our intelligence indicated they had no knowledge of our existence until today. But the evidence was overwhelming. Human forces were using everything from construction equipment to commercial satellites as weapons. Traffic control systems had been reprogrammed to coordinate defensive movements. Even civilian vehicles had been converted into mobile weapons platforms, their engines modified to achieve speeds that could ram through NIGMA defensive lines. In space, the first human spacecraft began launching from hidden facilities. These weren't the primitive chemical rockets the NIGMA had expected, but sleek vessels powered by reverse-engineered alien technology. They moved with unpredictable flight patterns that made them difficult targets for the larger alien warships. Admiral Yoon watched the battle statistics update in real time on her command displays. Human casualties were surprisingly low, while NIGMA forces were taking losses they hadn't experienced in decades of conquest. The aliens had expected to face a primitive species with crude weapons and no understanding of modern warfare. Instead, they had encountered an opponent that had studied them carefully and prepared accordingly. "Status report from all sectors," Yoon requested. "Tokyo sector reports successful containment of NIGMA ground forces," came the first response. "New York sector has eliminated 3 dropship squadrons. London sector has captured 2 intact NIGMA vehicles for study." Similar reports came from every major city. The pattern was clear. Wherever NIGMA forces had landed expecting easy conquest, they had instead found themselves trapped in carefully prepared defensive networks that used their own tactics against them. "They came expecting conquest," Admiral Yoon said quietly, watching as another NIGMA formation was forced to retreat from the surface. Instead, they found ingenuity. The first day of the invasion was ending, and it was becoming clear that this would not be the easy victory the NIGMA Empire had anticipated. Humanity had turned their entire planet into a fortress, and they were just getting started. The underground laboratory beneath New York hummed with constant activity as Dr. Shin examined the holographic display, showing the internal structure of a NIGMA energy shield. 3 months of relentless warfare had transformed her small research team into humanity's most crucial weapon development center. The facility had expanded dramatically, with new sections carved out of solid rock to house the growing collection of captured alien technology. "We've cracked their shield harmonics," Dr. Shin announced to the assembled team of scientists and engineers gathered around the central workstation. Her voice carried the exhaustion of someone who had been working 18-hour days for weeks, but also the excitement of a breakthrough that could change everything. "Their energy shields operate on a specific frequency pattern. Our new plasma rifles can pierce their armor by matching and disrupting that frequency." The weapon she held looked like a fusion of human and alien technology. The basic frame was human engineering, but the energy core glowed with the same blue light as NIGMA plasma weapons. Unlike the aliens' bulky energy rifles, the human version was sleek and efficient, designed to be manufactured quickly using Earth's industrial capacity. "How quickly can we mass-produce these?" asked Captain J, one of the military liaisons, who helped coordinate between the research teams and field commanders. "We've already set up production lines in 12 different facilities," replied Dr. Shin. "Within 2 weeks, every human soldier will be carrying weapons that can match NIGMA firepower." Meanwhile, in the ruins of what had once been downtown Tokyo, Colonel Park crouched in a bombed-out office building, reviewing tactical reports on his portable command tablet. The city had become a maze of fortified positions and hidden passages, with human forces controlling the underground while NIGMA troops tried to maintain their grip on the surface. "The aliens are predictable," Park explained to his squad leaders during their daily briefing. "They follow the same attack patterns regardless of terrain. They advance in formation, establish defensive perimeters, then try to hold ground until reinforcements arrive. We've turned that predictability into their weakness." His plan was elegantly simple. Human forces would allow NIGMA troops to establish their defensive positions, then strike from unexpected angles using the extensive tunnel networks beneath the city. While the aliens focused on holding their perimeters, human soldiers would emerge behind them, attack supply lines, and disappear before reinforcements could respond. "Remember," Park continued, "we're not trying to hold territory. We're trying to make them waste resources. Every NIGMA soldier we force to guard empty buildings is one less soldier available for their main offensive." High above Earth's atmosphere, Captain Mina adjusted her helmet as she prepared for another sortie with Phoenix Squadron. Her fighter looked like nothing the galaxy had ever seen, the sleek hull of a captured NIGMA interceptor, but modified with human technology that made it faster and more maneuverable than the original design. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix Leader." Mina's voice crackled through the communication system to her 11 squadron mates. "We have a NIGMA supply convoy heading for the lunar staging area. Remember hit-and-run tactics. We go in fast, hit their escorts, and get out before their main fleet can respond." The human fighters accelerated toward their target, their modified engines leaving trails of blue energy against the starfield. The NIGMA convoy consisted of 6 massive cargo ships protected by twice as many escort fighters. In a conventional engagement, the human squadron would be outnumbered and outgunned, but humanity had stopped fighting conventionally months ago. Phoenix 2, target the lead escort. Phoenix 3 and 4, take the cargo ship's engines. Everyone else focus on creating chaos, Mina ordered as they closed distance. The attack lasted exactly 90 seconds. Human fighters darted between the larger NIGMA vessels like angry wasps, their plasma weapons firing with precision that surprised even their own pilots. The captured alien technology had been enhanced with human targeting computers that could track multiple targets simultaneously. By the time NIGMA reinforcements arrived, Phoenix Squadron was already accelerating back toward Earth, leaving behind a convoy of disabled ships and confused aliens, wondering what had just happened. Aboard the NIGMA flagship, Eternal Dominion, General Vorth's frustration had reached dangerous levels. His cybernetic implants glowed angry red as he reviewed the latest casualty reports. The conquest that should have taken days was dragging into its 4th month, with no end in sight. "They're using civilian infrastructure as weapons," his chief aide reported, gesturing toward a holographic map showing human defensive positions. "Communication networks coordinate their attacks across the entire planet. Their power grids have been modified to overload our equipment when we try to tap into them. Even their weather satellites are being used to track our movements." "How is this possible?" Vorth demanded. "They're primitives. They should be begging for mercy by now," but the evidence was overwhelming. Human forces had turned their entire technological civilization into a weapon. Traffic control systems guided defensive movements. Internet networks coordinated resistance activities. Even civilian smartphones had been modified to jam NIGMA communications when activated simultaneously. 300 kilometers below, Admiral Yoon stood in her mobile command center, a heavily armored vehicle that could relocate every few hours to avoid NIGMA orbital strikes. Banks of screens showed the global situation in real time, with green indicators marking successful human operations and red zones showing areas still under alien control. "Status report from all sectors," she requested. "European sector reports successful disruption of NIGMA supply lines," came the first response. "Asian sector has eliminated 3 more dropship squadrons. American sector requests additional plasma rifles for the next phase of operations." Admiral Yoon nodded with satisfaction. "Every human advantage comes from thinking differently," she explained to her staff officers. The NIGMA fight the same way against every opponent. We don't just adapt to their technology, we improve it and use it in ways they never imagined. The breakthrough that changed everything came on a Tuesday morning, when Dr. Shin's team achieved what NIGMA scientists had said was impossible. They had successfully reverse-engineered the hyperspace drive technology that allowed faster-than-light travel. The principles are actually simpler than we thought, Dr. Shin explained to Admiral Yoon during a secure video conference. NIGMA technology is powerful but inefficient. We've streamlined their hyperspace equations and reduced the energy requirements by 40%. Within weeks, the first human-built vessels were rolling out of hastily constructed shipyards hidden in Earth's asteroid belt. These ships looked nothing like the elegant alien designs. They were functional, angular, and built for one purpose: to take the fight to the enemy. The first human strike beyond Earth's orbit targeted a NIGMA supply depot on Mars. Captain J commanded the small fleet of 5 human vessels as they emerged from hyperspace directly above the red planet's surface. "All ships, engage at will," J ordered. "Let's show them that Earth's children can play in space too." The NIGMA forces on. Mars had grown complacent, believing themselves safe in the outer solar system. The sudden appearance of human warships caught them completely unprepared. Within hours, the depot was destroyed and its defenders scattered. "Sir, we're losing control of the outer colonies," a NIGMA officer reported to General Vorth, with barely concealed panic. "Human forces have struck installations on Mars, Europa, and 3 asteroid mining facilities." "How is this possible?" Vorth roared. "They were trapped on one planet." But the answer was becoming clear to everyone except the NIGMA leadership. Humans had never been trapped. While the aliens had focused on conquering Earth's surface, humanity had been studying, learning, and preparing. They had turned their entire species into a research and development project focused on one goal: defeating the NIGMA Empire. Every captured alien device became a lesson in advanced technology. Every failed attack taught them about NIGMA tactics. Every day of the siege gave them more time to understand their enemy and develop countermeasures. The war had transformed from a desperate defense into something far more dangerous for the NIGMA Empire, a systematic campaign of human innovation that was rewriting the rules of galactic warfare. Admiral Yoon stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride, humanity's first fully operational starship, built from the ground up using hybrid human-alien technology. The vessel stretched nearly 1 kilometer in length, its hull gleaming with adaptive armor that could shift its properties based on incoming threats. 6 months of relentless warfare had transformed humanity from a species confined to one planet into a stellar power that commanded respect across the galaxy. Through the bridge's massive viewing screens, she could see the assembled human fleet. Over 300 vessels of various sizes, each one a testament to human ingenuity and determination. Fighter squadrons buzzed between the larger ships like protective swarms, their pilots eager for the chance to take the fight directly to the NIGMA Empire's core worlds. "Fleet status report," Admiral Yoon requested, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had led humanity through its darkest hour and emerged victorious. "All vessels report ready for combat operations," replied Commander Lee from the tactical station. "Phoenix Squadron is standing by for deep strike missions. The Liberation fleets are in position at their designated jump points." Admiral Yoon nodded, her dark eyes reflecting the starlight streaming through the viewport. "All fleets begin the counteroffensive. Today we end the NIGMA Empire's reign of terror." The order rippled through the communication networks, reaching human forces positioned throughout the solar system and beyond. What had begun as a desperate defense of Earth had evolved into a coordinated campaign to liberate dozens of oppressed worlds. Captain Mina's expanded squadron, now numbering over 50 fighters, streaked through hyperspace toward their target, the NIGMA supply depot at Proxima Station. The facility orbited a dim red star just 4 light-years from Earth, serving as a crucial logistics hub for alien forces operating in the outer spiral arm. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix Leader," Mina's voice carried through the comm channels to her pilots. "Proxima Station has been supplying the fleets that bombed our cities for 6 months. This is for every city you bombed, every family you destroyed." Her fighter, now in its third major upgrade cycle, bore little resemblance to the captured NIGMA interceptor she had first flown. Human engineers had replaced nearly every system with improved versions, creating a vessel that was faster, more maneuverable, and deadlier than anything in the alien arsenal. The attack on Proxima Station lasted exactly 17 minutes. Human fighters swarmed through the facility's defensive perimeter like a coordinated storm, their hybrid missiles finding every weak point in the station's shielding. By the time the last explosion faded, the supply depot was nothing but expanding. Debris and Phoenix Squadron was already jumping to their next target. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, Colonel Park stood in the ruins of what had once been the NIGMA Empire's primary command center in downtown Seoul. The building had been their strongest fortress on the planet, defended by energy shields and automated weapons systems. Now it was a smoking crater, and the last alien soldiers were laying down their weapons under the watchful eyes of human troops. "The home front is secure, Admiral," Park reported through his communication device. "All occupation forces have surrendered or been eliminated. Earth belongs to humanity once again." The news brought cheers from the bridge crew of the Seoul's Pride, but Admiral Yoon's expression remained focused. The liberation of their homeworld was just the beginning of a much larger campaign. Deep in space, General Vorth's flagship Eternal Dominion limped through the void, its hull scarred by repeated battles with human forces. The once mighty vessel had lost most of its escort fleet, and its remaining systems were operating at reduced capacity. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to maintain basic functions while monitoring the cascade of defeat reports coming in from across the Empire. "Request reinforcements from the core worlds," Vorth ordered desperately, his cybernetic implants flickering with the strain of maintaining his composure. "We need additional fleets to contain the human advance." The response from NIGMA High Command came swiftly, but it wasn't what he wanted to hear. "No reinforcements available. All fleets are engaged in suppressing rebellions inspired by human tactics. The Kalari system has fallen. The Trilarian colonies have declared independence. 17 worlds have requested human assistance in overthrowing their NIGMA governors." Vorth's mandibles clicked in disbelief. The human victory had triggered something unprecedented in galactic history, a chain reaction of liberation movements that was tearing apart the NIGMA Empire from within. The catalyst for this galactic uprising had been Dr. Shin's decision to share human innovations with oppressed species. Throughout the galaxy, her research teams had developed a method of transmitting technical specifications through quantum communication networks, allowing any species with basic manufacturing capability to produce human-designed weapons and defensive systems. "The humans have done the impossible," Ambassador Kang reported to an emergency session of the Galactic Council. "They've united the galaxy against a common oppressor. Species that have been enemies for centuries are now working together to overthrow NIGMA rule." The Trilarian ambassador's words carried across the galaxy through diplomatic channels, reaching worlds where rebellion had once seemed impossible. On the ice moon of Carrion, crystalline beings who had been enslaved for generations began manufacturing human-designed energy weapons. In the Vega system, aquatic species used human tactics to reclaim their ocean worlds from NIGMA industrial facilities. Captain J commanded the Earth Fleet's vanguard as they approached the NIGMA homeworld of Vorthak Prime. The planet hung in space like a dark jewel, its surface covered with the massive industrial complexes that had fueled the Empire's conquest of 47 star systems. "All ships, remember our mission," Jay announced to the assembled fleet. "We're not conquerors seeking revenge. We're liberators bringing freedom to oppressed peoples. The NIGMA civilians are not our enemies." The final battle began as human forces engaged the remaining NIGMA fleet above their capital world. The alien defenders fought with the desperation of a cornered predator, but their tactics had become predictable over 6 months of warfare. Human ships moved in coordinated formations that the NIGMA had never encountered, using advanced battle algorithms developed through careful study of alien combat patterns. Human fighters danced between the larger vessels, their pilots executing maneuvers that would have been impossible in the heavier alien craft. The Seoul's Pride led the main assault, its adaptive armor shifting to deflect incoming plasma fire, while its hybrid weapon systems returned devastating volleys. NIGMA flagship, Eternal Dominion is requesting parley, reported the communication officer aboard the Soul's Pride. Admiral Yoon studied the tactical display, watching as the remaining NIGMA vessels began to fall back toward their homeworld's atmosphere. The outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity had achieved total strategic superiority. "Open a channel to all NIGMA forces," she ordered. Her voice echoed across the comm channels, reaching not only the alien fleet but also monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. "This is Admiral Yoon of the Earth Defense Force. The war is over. Your empire has fallen, your fleets are scattered, and your subject worlds have chosen freedom. Surrender now and your people will be treated with honor." The response came from General Vorth himself, his voice heavy with defeat. "Admiral Yoon, this is General Vorth of the NIGMA Empire. We surrender. Our forces will lay down their weapons." Throughout the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The NIGMA Empire, which had seemed invincible just months before, had been defeated by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Humanity had not only defended their home world, but had inspired a galactic revolution that freed countless worlds from oppression. As the alien fleet powered down their weapons and began transmitting surrender codes, Admiral Yoon looked out at the stars and thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. From desperate defenders to galactic liberators, humanity had proven that innovation, determination, and the refusal to surrender could overcome any odds. The age of NIGMA domination was over. The age of galactic freedom had begun. The NIGMA surrender came at dawn, Earth time, as the planet's sun cast golden light across the assembled human fleet surrounding Vorthak Prime. General Vorth's remaining forces powered down their weapons and activated surrender beacons, their once mighty vessels now floating helplessly in space like wounded giants. The sight was broadcast across the galaxy, marking the end of an empire that had terrorized 47 star systems for over a century. Admiral Yoon watched from the bridge of the Soul's Pride as NIGMA shuttles approached under escort carrying the defeated leadership to formal surrender proceedings. The irony wasn't lost on her. 6 months ago, these same aliens had expected humanity to surrender within hours of their arrival. "Prepare the ceremonial hall," she ordered, "and ensure our guests are treated with dignity. We may have defeated them, but we're not conquerors." General Vorth cut an imposing figure even in defeat as he was escorted aboard the human flagship. His chitinous armor had been damaged in the final battle, and several of his cybernetic implants flickered weakly, but his red eyes still burned with the intensity that had made him the NIGMA Empire's most feared military commander. "I don't understand," Vorth said as he stood before Admiral Yoon in the ship's main conference room. "Your species was listed as primitive in our intelligence reports. You had barely achieved spaceflight. How did you defeat the mightiest empire in the galaxy?" Admiral Yoon studied the defeated general with a mixture of curiosity and pity. Even now faced with the complete collapse of his empire, he still couldn't grasp what had happened. "You saw our technology level and assumed that defined our capability," she replied calmly. "You failed to understand what makes humans truly dangerous." "Which is?" Vorth's voice carried genuine confusion, as if he were asking about some exotic weapon system he hadn't encountered. "We learn, we adapt, we never give up." Admiral Yoon's words were simple, but they carried the weight of 6 months of relentless warfare. "Every attack you made taught us something new about your tactics. Every weapon you used became a puzzle for our scientists to solve. Every day you failed to defeat us made us stronger." The formal surrender ceremony took place in the same crystal chamber of the Galactic Council, where Ambassador Kang had delivered his warning all those months ago. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the floating platforms, many of them beings who had been freed from NIGMA oppression by the human-led liberation movement. The chamber itself had been transformed for the occasion, where once the NIGMA delegation had sat in their elevated thrones proclaiming their superiority, now stood empty platforms serving as a reminder of fallen arrogance. The ancient keeper of the council presided over the proceedings, his energy form glowing brighter than usual as he witnessed this historic moment. "The NIGMA Empire is hereby dissolved," the keeper announced, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. Its territory shall be redistributed among the species they oppressed, with Earth serving as guarantor of the peace. The ceremony continued with the recognition of human heroes who had turned the tide of war. Captain Mina stepped forward to receive the Star of Terra, the highest honor that could be bestowed by the Galactic Council. Her flight suit bore the markings of dozens of successful missions, and her face showed the quiet confidence of someone who had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. For exceptional courage in the face of overwhelming enemy forces, the Keeper intoned, and for inspiring others to fight for freedom across the galaxy, Colonel Park received the Order of Earth for his tactical brilliance in defending humanity's homeworld. His innovations in urban warfare had become textbooks studied by military academies on a dozen different worlds. Dr. Shin was honored for her technological breakthroughs that had revolutionized galactic warfare. Her hybrid weapons and reverse-engineered hyperspace drives had not only saved humanity, but had been shared freely with oppressed species throughout the galaxy. Your gift of knowledge has broken chains that seemed unbreakable, the Keeper said as he presented her with the Crystal of Innovation, an award that had been given to only 3 beings in galactic history. As the ceremony concluded, Ambassador Kang approached Admiral Yoon near the observation deck that looked out over the swirling nebulae surrounding the Council station. My people warned of this outcome months ago, Kang said, his blue scales shimmering with mixed emotions. I wish your species had not been forced to prove our fears correct. Admiral Yoon nodded slowly, understanding the weight behind his words. Sometimes the only way to ensure peace is to win a war so decisively that none dare threaten it again. The galaxy needed to see that oppression has consequences. The Galactic Council formally welcomed Earth as a major power that day, recognizing humanity's right not just to defend themselves but to protect other species from oppression. It was a responsibility that came with enormous challenges, but one that humanity embraced with typical determination. In the months that followed, human construction fleets worked alongside liberated species to rebuild worlds devastated by NIGMA rule. On Carrion, the crystalline beings who had been enslaved for generations watched as human engineers helped them restore their ancient ice cities. In the Vega system, aquatic species swam freely in oceans that had been cleared of NIGMA industrial pollution. In the ruins of the former NIGMA capital on Vorthak Prime, a memorial was erected to all who had died in the war. The monument was built using materials donated by every species that had fought for liberation, creating a structure that sparkled with the combined hopes of 100 worlds. The inscription, written in the common galactic language but inspired by human values, read, "To those who fell defending freedom. Your sacrifice taught the galaxy that even the smallest voice, when backed by unbreakable will, can topple the mightiest empire." Earth ships now patrolled the former NIGMA territory, not as conquerors but as guardians of peace. Human crews worked alongside officers from dozens of species, their combined fleets ensuring that no new empire could rise to threaten galactic freedom. Captain J commanded one such patrol fleet, his vessels regularly stopping at worlds that were still recovering from decades of oppression. Remember, he would tell his crew during each mission briefing, we're not here to rule. We're here to make sure everyone gets the chance to rule themselves. The transformation was remarkable. Systems that had been stripped of resources for the NIGMA war machine began to flourish again. Trade routes that had been controlled by the Empire became open highways for peaceful commerce. Species that had been enemies under alien rule discovered they could be neighbors and friends. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through conquest but through liberation. They had proven that a species' strength wasn't measured by the size of their fleet or the power of their weapons, but by their willingness to stand up for what was right, even when the odds seemed impossible. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson that would echo through the centuries. Never underestimate a species that refuses to surrender. And more importantly, never underestimate the power of beings who fight not for dominion, but for the simple right of all creatures to be free. Years would pass, and new challenges would arise, but the memory of humanity's first war would serve as a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples everywhere. They had shown that even the mightiest empire could fall when faced with opponents who would never stop learning. Never stop adapting, and never, ever give up. The end.